Welcome to the Great Basin Smoke Dispersion Briefing for Wednesday, December 30th. This is Gina McGuire. Over the last 7 days, most areas have seen at least some amounts of precipitation, with the exception of far southern Nevada, which has remained dry. Areas across Utah and a large portion of Nevada and into the Sierra and to southwest Idaho have seen above normal precipitation for the last week. Looking at the water vapor satellite image for today, we have an area of low pressure over the northern Rockies with a trough that extends westward across the northern areas of the Great Basin. This trough will swing southeast through the Great Basin today, and it will produce some areas of precipitation. However, another area of low pressure will also drop into the Great Basin later this week. Looking at the infrared satellite image, we can see the enhanced clouds over parts of northern Nevada, Utah, and to southeast Idaho, and this is where some light precipitation is falling, with precipitation again expected throughout today. Now looking at the ventilation index for today, which indicates very low values across all of the Great Basin, indicating poor dispersion. If we break this into the individual components, the transport winds on the left, and we see fairly light winds across the Great Basin, with mixing height on the right, indicating very low mixing heights, with most areas in the white, purple, or blue. Again, very poor dispersion is expected in all areas today with that cooler air in place at the surface and some precipitation. As we move into Thursday and this area of low pressure drops a little bit further south, we'll still see weaker winds and cool temperatures over the northern half of the Great Basin. However, we are going to see an increase in dispersion over parts of southern Nevada and southern Utah. And the reason for this is we will see slightly stronger winds ahead of the area of low pressure over the southern portion of the Great Basin on Thursday, along with improved mixing heights with slightly warmer temperatures. As we move into Friday, and the next area of low pressure drops into the Great Basin, keeping winds fairly light in most areas, with the exception of the far southern areas. Again, we'll see generally poor dispersion in all areas with the exception of southern Nevada and southern Utah, which is again where these slightly breezier winds and higher mixing heights will be. If we look at the forecast clearing index for Utah issued by the National Weather Service, we see generally very low dispersion or very low clearing index for all areas, with the exception of parts of southern Utah on Thursday and even parts of southern or southeast Utah on Friday as we see this slightly increased mixing. Looking at the overall forecast amounts of precipitation, we will see some light showers throughout the day today and tomorrow across the Great Basin, but most areas will see less than a quarter inch of total liquid equivalent amounts of precipitation. If we look further ahead at this weekend into early next week, we see a ridge of high pressure briefly across the Great Basin, with again decreased precipitation but still some cloud cover and generally lighter winds, indicating mainly poor dispersion across the Great Basin with the exception of parts of the southern half of Nevada, which may see a slight improvement, but again relatively fair to moderate. If we look at Sunday, we see a trough of low pressure starting to swing into the Great Basin from the southwest, and this will provide plenty of cloud cover, and also we'll start to see some precipitation either later on Sunday or into Monday associated with this system. Again, fairly light winds as we still have some ridging over the eastern half of the Great Basin, indicating poor dispersion. But as we can see in California, as that trough moves onshore, we'll likely see some improved dispersion across southern and western areas of the Great Basin as we move into early next week. By Monday, the trough swings northeast, and we'll see more of a typical El Nino pattern with areas of low pressure moving in from the southwest, bringing more precipitation to finally southern areas of the Great Basin and into western areas as well. On Monday, we'll still see fairly low ventilation indices over the northern half of the Great Basin, but again improving in the south. On Tuesday, another area of low pressure approaches, and this will bring a better chance of precipitation to the southern two-thirds of the Great Basin, especially as we move towards Tuesday and Wednesday. Again, still fairly weak winds and low mixing heights, indicating poor dispersion in most areas. If we look at the overall forecast amount of precipitation from Saturday morning through Sunday, again, only some very light showers, if anything, across the Great Basin, but you can see this larger area of precipitation moving into California, which will be later in the weekend, and this will start swinging northeast through the Great Basin as we move into early to the mid portion of next week. If we look a little bit further ahead into the end of the first week into the second week of January, we'll likely see below normal temperatures, but as you can see, we're starting to see that above normal precipitation move into southern areas of the Great Basin. That concludes the briefing for today. If you have any questions, feel free to contact us. Thank you for listening.